welcome back to Disenfranchised Podcast. So I am here today with Evan McMahon. So Evan McMahon is the Indiana Libertarian State Chair, and he is running for the national chair. So thank you so much for taking the time. I know you got a busy schedule. I know you're doing about 1,000 of these things plus trying to get everything done. As you can tell, I don't have my normal backdrop because my computer's acting like a piece of shit. And so it's too hard on the hardware right now, apparently, for visual effects. I'm lucky I got it to turn on in the first place.
That's what it told me too. Because I was like, going to try to
Really?
put on a nice background, and it said your computer doesn't meet the specs. And I'm like, pretty sure it does. Pretty sure it does.
I sometimes have to do it. I sometimes have to switch it off of Chrome.
That may be it. I'm on Chrome.
But it shouldn't matter. Chrome should be the better option. I mean, I am on Microsoft Edge though, so I don't know. Whatever. I like
Ooh.
Riverside. Riverside as a whole has done pretty good for us, so it is what it is though. So.
Well, but Travis, it's great to be here. Glad to be on the show. Reaching out to talk to you about my vision for the next 2 to 4 years for the National Party and bringing some of the professionalism and success that we've had in Indiana up to the national level.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was great to finally get a chance to meet you. I've seen you online, in different meme stuff. I was dipping my toes in the big L libertarian pool far before I joke around. I go, I paid my
Kool-Aid.
Well, I've always been more libertarian leaning, but I was much more on like, I don't want to even get involved.
Listen,
I don't want to dick with it.
It's one thing to vote and to talk about libertarianism online and stuff like that. It's a totally different thing to be a card-carrying member
Yes.
of the party. So, we welcome you into the party. We're glad you're here. We're glad you're a member. Now you can throw stones from inside, which is a lot more fun.
Well, and I was, I think, I've so I went to the Ohio convention last weekend or 2 weekends ago, I guess it was, and got a chance to see Spike Cohen talk. And, obviously you had Justin Amash and, the message from both those guys was basically like, hey, yes, we are all autistic. We are all, there's not a single one of us that is everyone here is the best libertarian, right? But realize that this is a platform. You got to invite people to vote. You got to make people be wanted. So you gotta have a little bit of class with that. And that was kind of the message from both the speakers. And I feel like the message that comes from you. I mean, I don't want to step on your toes too long, but which is exciting because we're actually going to have Spike Cohen on the show. This is actually the very first announcement. So he agreed to it.
Ask him if he has read my poetry book.
Okay.
He's got a copy of it, and everyone I know, whoever has him on, I ask them to ask him if he's actually finally read it yet, because he's had it since August.
Well, I don't even know you had a poem. Now I'm gonna have to go on to. Is it on? Amazon?
Available on Amazon.
Perfect. Yeah, I'll look it up.
It's 23 short poems written from my experience with identity and protest growing up in a small town in Indiana. So it's very angsty, very bitter, just like me. But
very Spider-Man episode for Spider-Man 3.
There you go. Yeah. Man, Spider-Man.
So let's talk about that. So what's your history? What brought you into this? Like you said, growing up in a small town in Indiana. So let's start as they say at the beginning.
When I was a kid, my aunt who helped take care of me tried to find fun things for us to do together. And one of them, when I was about 6 years old, was she had a family friend running for the legislature in Indiana. It was a Democrat, and we volunteered on her campaign. And went door to door and stood out in front of, Kroger grocery stores, passing out literature. And it just became a thing that we did each cycle. We went and volunteered on a campaign, and then there were causes that we would go and campaign for. And it was just, a way for us to do something together and have fun. But I learned a lot about, very early. I mean, I was 6 years old. I didn't learn it then, but as I was getting older, I learned more and more about politics and about the political machine. And there were things that I saw when I was young that later informed my opinion of the duopoly. Looking back, going, now all of that makes sense.
Right.
And that makes so much more sense now. But so, I grew up in that political sphere. I served on I was appointed as a teenager to the Bloomington City Council subcommittee on youth engagement in politics and things like that. I had a couple of kids come to me and say, hey, they're shutting down the skate park, but there's an ordinance that says we can't skateboard on the city streets or on the sidewalks. Can you help us with this? We actually got the ordinance changed through talking to the mayor and the city council. And I just loved politics. I loved the fact that they serve you. And if you know that, it changes the dynamic.
Right.
And so the idea being every election is a permanent revolution, so to speak. And so I stayed involved, and then a Republican that I had done work with through the city council asked me if I wanted to work on his campaign. And I went, "Oh, no, you're a dirty Republican. I'm a Democrat." And he said, "Oh, I was going to pay you." And I was like, deal. Deal. And I was in high school. I didn't, I really didn't fully understand the differences between the party, which was funny because at the time I thought there doesn't seem to be much of a difference. It just seems like you guys feel the same way about things. It's just the little details that you fight
Yeah.
over. As I got older, I found that that was very true. So I worked for Republicans for a long time, did ballot drives and worked on candidate campaigns all across the country, every state except Hawaii and Alaska. In about 2010, or a little before that, but Mark Rutherford, the libertarian godfather in Indiana, kept seeing me around and he kept kind of poking me and saying, "Hey, they don't actually believe what they're saying. Like they really don't.
Yeah.
You
You
should
know, they're all full of
this
shit.
guy really believes that." I was like, you guys can't win." And he was like, "Come help us win." And I was like, I'm not doing that. And in 2010, I became very disenfranchised with things that I saw in both the state and national party. And I resigned and then gave up basically all of my contacts and said, "That's it, I'm done." And switched over to the Libertarian Party and immediately started working on a gubernatorial campaign, running that here in Indiana, and never really looked back. And my birth into the Libertarian Party, and I'd voted for Libertarians prior to that, but my birth in the party, I came in a 100 Libertarian. I came in, little bit more left on social issues and a little bit more kind of not understanding some of the fiscal side of things. But like, I thought, hey, some gun restrictions are good, like, we don't want terrorists, having guns and stuff. Does anybody really need a 30-round magazine? And now, my philosophy is, if they have nukes, I should be able to have nukes. You should be able to decide how to protect your house and your
Right. Right.
and so, you know, we have a tendency to fire hose uh, people with libertarian thought and demand that they take it all right,
Right.
like
Right.
they're
Put
on
your hand on this Bible and pledge to us now.
and you have to accept everything. And the reality is, Dr. Michael Munger from, I think, Duke University, economics professor, he gives a great speech on destinational versus directional libertarianism. And destinational libertarians want to be teleported from where we are today to libertopia. Directional libertarianism is the train of liberty is moving down the tracks, heading towards libertopia. And some people get on at different places and some people get off at different places, but the train is always moving in that direction. So we have to allow people the opportunity to come onto the train and slowly sip the Kool-Aid, little shot glasses of Kool-Aid before
Right.
we give them the deluge of the fire hose of liberty. Let them grow into it, in faith circles, you call it being fishers of men. And you bring them in on the things that they're passionate about and that they feel, and you let them on their own come to those realizations. You don't try to beat him over the head. Me and my boyfriend, we've been together 9 years. And when we first met, he was a hardcore socialist lefty. And now he's like, taxes are evil. It's just theft out of my paycheck. The roads are garbage. Like a private company could do better than this. And I'm like, oh, really?
Yeah.
Really? Oh, it's amazing. We first met, and he was like, punch a Nazi in the face, and now he's like, listen, you have the right to say whatever you want. As your
Right.
right to say stupid shit gives me the right to say the things that I think are important.
Yep.
That didn't happen because I sat him down and was like, here, let's discuss John Locke,
Right. Right.
Instead, it was letting him just see how kind of I reacted to things. So gave that example and be like, yeah, I disagree with him, but, his right to say that is the reason why we were able to hold pride festivals, is the reason why, when the Stonewall riot happened, it sparked this, and that's why these things happen. And so that was my entry into the Libertarian Party, and unfortunately, I don't see that happening as much today. I see a lot more of the notion that we have to agree, and if we
Yeah.
disagree, I have to hate.
Yeah.
You're not good enough, and I don't like that. We could disagree. We could be passionately like, I think that beer you're drinking is garbage. Not that you're drinking
It
beer,
was
but just
cheap.
that's garbage.
Yeah.
Like, there's a reason why we didn't let it in Indiana until like 5 or 6 years ago. You had to go all the way to Ohio to get it.
It's not my favorite, but I'm in Pennsylvania, so it's fresh. So I don't every once in a while. No,
But
that's
we could disagree, but there's a civility that has to be done in that disagreement, and we have
right.
to find that space to have that disagreement. But I want people to have the epiphany and the opportunity moment for themselves to discover that next thing about libertarianism, that next thing about individual liberty and freedom. I don't want that taken away by administering an oath when you come through the door.
Right, right. Well, and it's the same thing that we, when we're trying to bring over people from the Republicans or the Democrats, you say, what do you start with typically? You start with, well, Liz, what are they doing that you disagree with, right?
Right,
And so you can't then turn around and do the exact same thing on the other end.
right. Yeah.
You want to be the platform where you can have those spirited debates and not have to be locked in. I mean, I think like anything else, you got to have some sort of standards, and I think that
Well, here's my hardcore philosophy is this. If you have one libertarian thought, one thing that matches up with the party, welcome. That doesn't mean we make you a candidate or an officer in the
right,
county
right,
party or a leader, but it does mean welcome, come in. Be welcoming and inviting. And that's something that, artism keeps us from doing that because we want to know who's your favorite economist and why, is something, and it's no, don't do that because the vast majority of people out there have absolutely zero idea what you're talking about. And then it intimidates them. They feel not welcome. And that happened to my boyfriend. We went to a couple of meetings. I brought him, which was so stupid, but I brought him and he was like, I don't know what they're talking about. And they made me feel stupid. I don't want to go back. And I was like, I'm sorry. That's we're nerds.
yeah,
We're it's very socially awkward. Maybe you can come and help us with that.
right, right,
But I want people to come in the door. I want them to come in on that one idea. And I want us to keep them there so that they can have that epiphany moment. But it doesn't mean you have to make them a candidate. It's
yeah,
okay to say no. And I say that to our county chairs all the time. You have a candidate that, you just don't feel comfortable with. It's okay to say no. We'd rather not run somebody. That doesn't mean we hate you and we want you gone. It just means, hey, listen, you need a little bit more time. You need a few more firm libertarian positions before we're ready for you to go out and represent the whole party. You
right.
know, that's what
Well,
you're
especially
doing.
because there's so few candidates. They're all under a microscope.
Yeah.
Every single one. I mean, I've talked to a couple of people. We just had Dion from Laporte on, and he's a good example because he's one of those, and he's a Republican out there. And me and him were actually talking earlier about it, and we were kind of going back and forth. And he was like, "Well, what do you think about this thing?" And he sent me this thing about, and it was a Thomas Sowell, but it wasn't him. It was Thomas Sowell's quotes. So it was like some guy
Mm.
that or just some random dude. And I was like, well, first of all, that could just be me. That could be anybody. That doesn't represent Thomas Sowell. I've read and listened to a lot of audiobooks of his, and it's a lot of it's very steeped in libertarian,
Yeah. Yeah.
ideals.
There's a lot of good stuff there. There's some
Oh, for
garbage, but
sure.
there's a lot of good
Yeah,
stuff.
like anything else. I mean,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
could say the same thing about a lot about Hayek,
Yeah. Yeah.
Mises. I mean, you go down the whole list. I mean, there's certain things that even Ron Paul that I wasn't
Yeah,
the
there's
biggest
things
Ron
I
Paul
disagree
fan.
with on Ron Paul on. I do think he's the GOAT.
Well, without a
Rand
doubt. I
Paul,
mean,
I'm a little less fond of.
yeah, yeah, he's a little more centrist, I guess. I think he's a little more get along to go along. You know?
Yeah. Like, I like Massey. I think Massey's amazing.
Yeah,
I love that he's just kicking ass in his race right now. Good for him. But there's also things that I strongly disagree with him on.
yeah,
Guess what? I
that's okay.
love Joe Jorgensen. I love Chase Oliver. I love Gary Johnson. I still disagreed with all 3 of them on some things,
Yeah.
but that doesn't mean you throw the baby out with the bathwater, you know what I mean?
Right. Right. Well, and that was that was the argument that we were going back and forth. He's like, "Well, what do you think, leaves?" Because he's talking to me like leaving the Republican Party years ago. He's like, "Do you really think that this is the right thing?" I go, "I think it's going to have to be." I'm like, because I think that statistically, everyone's done with the two parties. And anybody around 40 to 45 to years old and younger, they're just about done with them.
Listen, I was a hardcore Lincoln Republican. I wanted the government to stay out of my pocketbook and stay out of my choices. That was it. That's all I wanted.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely it. That doesn't exist. It's a fallacy because they've got their overlords, they've got their special interests, they've got the things that they're being bought and paid for, and that's what they're going to push. And the reality is, just like the Democrats, they're willing to let you do and live how you want as long as it's something that they agree with.
Right.
And,
Well, it's not even
there's
that they agree with it, it's as long as it's something their donors agree with.
right,
That's the
right,
biggest
exactly.
issue.
Yeah, yeah. A few years ago, we had RFRA, the Religious Freedom Restoration Act in Indiana, which basically said in a roundabout way, you could violate state law in certain areas as long as you had a deeply held religious belief. And it was basically like, let's discriminate against the gays. Like that was what it was really about. I had a state senator come up to me. I was there working on the vaping lobby at the time. And a state senator I'd been friends with for years came up to me and he said, "Don't worry, Evan," because it had passed and had been signed into law by the governor, and then the companies like Cummins and Angie's List and all those kind of got real mad that they didn't know until later that this had happened. It was like, what were you doing? Like it was like they weren't doing it in secret. They had
Right,
so
right.
many vote like discussions and debates on it. But then so like it made national news and Pence had to go on TV and kind of like apologize but not apologize. And businesses were saying they weren't going to come to Indiana. So this state senator, a very conservative
Yeah,
guy,
I kinda remember that.
comes up to me in front of a group of people and says, "Don't worry, Evan, we're going to fix RFRA." And I said, because he knows I'm gay. And I said, "Don't fix it on my account." And
Right,
he said,
right.
"What do you mean?" And I was like, "My only problem with that law is that it requires a deeply held religious belief. Why can't it just be because you think gays are gross? Like, you should have the right to discriminate against me if you want to. And by the way, that already existed in the law. You have the right to refuse service to anyone for any reason. This is an at-will state. You can fire somebody for any reason. What you're doing by creating these laws or the Employment Non-Discrimination Act is you're making them build a case to fire me, which can
Right,
actually prevent me from getting a job somewhere else. Why can't we just say, hey, listen, you're not a cultural fit. This isn't something we agree with. We don't like how you live your life. That's great. You're a private business. I move on, I get a job somewhere else. But now you've created this file as a reason to fire me. Now
yeah.
I'm going to have a hard time going and getting a job. What am I supposed to say? They were bigots and they fired me. Yeah, but there's all this stuff. Like, you know, I want my government to treat me the same as every other citizens. I want them to be blind to gender expression, sexual orientation, race, religion, political view. I want my government to be blind of all of that when it comes to the equal application of the law. Citizens, you have the right to like and dislike whoever you want. And
Yeah,
that's the way it should be. But he was surprised because I was a gay man saying I was perfectly fine with this. That to me is libertarianism. That's real libertarianism is when you can say, yeah, this would probably hurt me, but you should have the right to not care.
right.
Like to live your life how you want. You shouldn't be forced to hire me. I
Yeah,
mean, but that ideology and what he saw in that moment was real principle. And we had that conversation about the difference between Republicans and libertarians the next time we met up. And he said, no Republican would have done what you did. No Republican would have said that.
yeah.
They would have found a way to fight something that they disagreed with, even though from a principled standpoint, it would meet all of the other boxes. And it's, yeah, that's the difference between libertarians and Republicans and Democrats is we actually believe what we say. We don't try to find ways to twist it and contort it to bend to our will.
Right.
You know, I'm gonna go and speak on behalf of a neo-Nazi group that wants to get a permit to hold a rally. 'Cause 1, I don't think they should have to get the permit, and 2, they shouldn't be able to be denied a permit.
Right.
It's my job as a citizen who disagrees with them to go and protest outside their event and want them to be a counter voice to what they're saying. But they should have the right to say, because that guarantees that I'm able to stand up on the street corner and say my piece. That
Right.
right protects me. So we actually believe what we say, and we're not willing to uh, disregard that just to win. We're not willing to go out there and spin the rhetoric and put on the RD label just to win. We believe in what we say, and we hope you will see it eventually too. If we
Yeah.
hadn't done that, cannabis would still be a crime in every state. We wouldn't be declassifying it or descheduling it on the federal level. A lot of those things, constitutional carry was a libertarian idea.
Yeah.
All of those things came from our party, and we were unwavering, even when people would say, if you just stop talking about that crazy weed, you'd probably get elected.
Okay. Oh well. That's kind of my, that's kind of my thing. Although, I will, so, I'm running for state rep, and
Thank you
in
for your
District 4.
service.
Thank you. Yeah. It was a tough decision at first. Well, and I got to give all the credit to Mike, Porter County Chair
Mike Telesti.
Mike
Good guy.
Telesky, and because I was thinking of running no matter what. So I had reached out to him. Well, I think I'd reached out to the state party, and then I got directed to him.
Yeah.
I forget how exactly, but I was gonna think about running, period, anyway. So I was actually kicking around independent at first because, I didn't know all the details, but I had heard that, there was kind of recently some shenanigans with the Big L Libertarian Party that, was kind of a shit show. And again, I don't really know all the
It
details.
is.
I've heard. Yeah, yeah, that's what I've heard. And I don't wanna necessarily spend, I know we only got 30 minutes or so left over. I don't wanna spend 30 minutes going through that. Maybe we'll have you on a different time
It's
to.
all inside baseball, though.
That's why that was kind of the thing. So I was gonna run for as an independent, and Mike was like, "Well, what are you running on?" And I kinda gave him, my 5 or 6 main points. And he's like, "You sound pretty libertarian." I go, "I am very libertarian." Like, I've always known that. I've always known I've been much more libertarian than not so, right? And that was when he was like, "Well, we could use you. I wouldn't mind having you on board." He's like, "You've been an elected official. You've got experience. You're doing this podcast. You're doing all this other stuff already." Like, he's like, he goes, "You don't have to collect signatures. We've already have ballot access." He kind of sold it. And I was like, "You know what? Yeah, let's do it. I'm going to come to the next meeting." And that, kind of the ball started rolling from there. And I was at the Ohio convention, and I'm out at the bar after having a good time, and I'm talking to one of their outreach people in Ohio, and he didn't realize I was from Indiana at first. He didn't realize I'd driven down there. And so I'm telling that story about getting kind of invited on, and he goes, "Oh, dude," he goes, "that's fantastic." He goes, "We had somebody that was able to bring you. You were going to run anyways. We got you to be it." He goes, "That's awesome." And he goes, "Who was it? What county in Ohio?" I go, "No, no, no, no. I live up in Northwest Indiana. I'm just."
Ohio, thinking that they're doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, it was fun. It was a good trip. And most of the people actually, and you don't know how much of it's lip service, but when I told them, I'm like, "Yeah, I plan on going I'm an alternate right now for the national convention, currently." Am I probably okay, okay. So, which is fine. I was going anyways. Because I was gonna get content for the show, even if I didn't, just hang out. I mean, I interviewed a guy out on Los Angeles that was involved in the Libertarian Party. We interviewed a guy, we've done stuff with people in Detroit. So I was gonna go and see, meet, people anyways. But anyways, I'm rambling here. So, but I was, from what I had heard was that they're like, "Well, yeah," most of the Ohio delegates, he goes, "if not all, I think are all going to be backing Evan." And I was like, "Oh, well, that's good to know." I'm like, I'll let him know. Yeah. So that's, at least
We
that's
have
what I'm.
ties with Ohio. We do a lot of work together,
Yeah.
help with petition drives, and it's hard on them there, man. They have to get so many so many signatures, and it's difficult. It's actually, I mean, it's the same here. The difference is we've been able to maintain our ballot access since 1994 in the Secretary of State's race every 4 years, which is coming. This is this year, and Lori Shillings is our amazing candidate. She's out there doing an amazing. She's out actually at events today. But they've struggled, and they've had bad court ruling after bad court ruling over the years. But we've gone to their events. We've done joint trainings as a region, and so they're great, a great state. They put a lot of work into their campaigns. It's just they just get so screwed over by their ballot access, man. If they didn't have to do that every couple of cycles, they'd be even bigger and better. But
Yeah.
they've got a great state there. Michelle McCutcheon, I think, is the executive director. Mike Sweeney is the chair there in Ohio, and they're trying to do all the right things, and they're really doing a great job. I heard the convention was really good there.
It was really fun. I had a good time. I got a nice libertarian polo for I was the
Nice.
highest bidder on that. So, and again, I got a chance to meet Spike Cohen, which I've been I definitely was like fanboy, I was like, "Hey, I'm a huge fan." He's like, "Oh, thanks." And again, he's just such a nice, easy-going, cool guy. His wife's amazing. I mean, she was because I brought my girlfriend down there, and after I got done to talking to him, and everything was getting shut down, we were talking to her, and she's like, "Get your girlfriend out. Go get a drink. You guys look all dolled up nice." She goes, "Get out of here. Get out of this shit. Get out of here. Go,
Yeah, yeah,
go." And I'm like, just and it was she was so super honestly, super nicest person.
yeah. She's
Super
she's a
excited
sweetheart.
that they were willing to that he was willing to come on the show because, like I said, end of this month, actually, I guess it's May now. He's coming on the podcast. We're gonna start advertising for that. This Thomas Quieter, he's coming on actually next week. What's
Thomas
that?
Queter.
Queeter. I know it's not quitter. I always feel bad
Yeah,
because
yeah,
'cause I'm like, I forget that
yeah.
exact pronunciation, but
Yeah.
I saw him down there,
He's
got
he's amazing, and his Power to
super
Boot
nice guy.
documentary is amazing.
Yeah,
Just his story, and it's actually a great opportunity to bring people in to see, like, this is what libertarianism is. You know,
yeah,
we get a lot of people who think, like, we hate the poor and we're selfish. And it's like, actually, we're probably the most compassionate of all the parties. We're not neurotypical, so it doesn't express very well. But, like,
right,
we want people to be able to succeed. We don't want people to go hungry. We
right,
want them to be free of the chains that keep them in the system that wants to lock them into that for life.
right.
Yeah, Thomas is amazing. I love the work that they're doing. Did you get it? Hopefully, if next time you see him at an event, take a ride in the electric wheelchair that they
I did
built.
that. I did that when I was in Indiana. When I came to the Indiana convention because I wasn't a Porter County delegate. So when you guys were voting
Yeah,
on all that stuff, I was just there to once that I was the official candidate and I got my
yeah,
paperwork in and the state party was voting on some different things. I was like, well, I'm gonna go get a drink and go to the bathroom. I
yeah.
don't necessarily need to be in here for this. He snagged me and we took a ride around, BS'd, hung out, we hung out for like 30 minutes. So it was really cool. We got a chance.
And if they can get the resources and the support, within 2 years, they can get that thing down in half. But the whole thing is DIY. It's all open sourced. You can technically make it and print it at home. It's just really, really expensive to do it. But, like, the stories about people who, you're stuck in a government system, but then, like, you can't get your wheelchair and you can't save up money to get it, and they just put all these barriers in place. It's just
Yeah.
it's a bureaucratic system that has check boxes that can't be checked. And so it leaves people to just, literally just sit on the sidewalk. And it's heartbreaking, heartbreaking. But I love the work that he's doing. Thomas is an amazing guy.
Yeah, yeah, I can't wait to have him get into more details on that like I said, I think it's next week he's coming on. So tell me, what is your platform then for running for the national party?
Yeah.
Like you said, I know that there was a lot. It's kind of been a shit show lately, and so it was, the game plan is to get you in there, get the. I can already see the cogs of everything moving in the right direction. I think the Republicans and Democrats have brought enough people in. Well, I'm sure you've seen more interest recently than not. So yeah. What?
I mean, The biggest thing for me is the national party is supposed to support the affiliates, the state affiliates, and provide them the tools and the resources that they need so that they can run candidates and county parties, get people elected, change policy, repeal shitty laws, roll back zoning ordinances. And that's up and down the ticket. That's, the local, smallest office in your county, all the way up to the governor of the state. But it's the national party's job is to run a presidential candidate, to run messaging in between presidential candidates, and to support our members and our affiliates. But we've not been doing that for quite a while. For a long time, the national party has done things to the affiliate instead of with or in support of the affiliate. I've been a state chair since 2021. Before that, I've been serving with my state party in leadership since 2000, the end of 2010. I served on the LNC as an at-large in 2014, and I've seen it the whole time. There have been some national chairs that have worked really hard to try to have that relationship with affiliates, but by and large, it's a lot of things that happen to them. I'll give you an example. In 2012. Andy Horning was a U.S. Senate candidate, and he did an amazing job. And the Republican Richard Murdoch said something probably pretty stupid in the debate, and Andy didn't take the bait and gave a great answer. And the Republican in Indiana lost, and the Democrat won. And that was the story, right? National the next day sent a press release to the media here in Indiana congratulating Andy Horning on being a spoiler, which had been a message that the state party had been spending 2 decades trying to dispel.
Right.
And then in one swoop, the national party reinvigorated that debate, and it became the libertarians, nothing here but spoilers in favor of Democrats.
Yeah.
And that wasn't the case. Andy was very principled and running, and the Republican was just not great. And,
I remember that year. I remember Murdoch being a shitty candidate. I
it
was I
was
was involved in Republican stuff at that time,
yeah.
and I remember being sitting there going, what did he say? Do you remember offhand? It
Oh,
was
I
something.
remember what it was. It
What
was a
was it? What
question
was it?
about abortion. He gave kind of a wishy-washy answer, and the moderator pushed him on it. And he said, "Well, I don't support abortion in any case." And the moderator then pushed back and said, "Well, what about rape? In the case of rape or incest?" And Murdoch said, "Well, that's God's plan for you."
That's right.
And that was the end of that was it. That was it. You're done. You just said that rape was God's plan. Like, I get what you're saying, but that, like, whoa, dude. Yeah. So Democrat won, like, easily won.
Yeah.
But in Andy Horning's response, and you got to remember, this was in 2012, and Andy Horning is a rule of law constitutionalist. And
Right.
Andy Horning said, this has already been settled by the Supreme Court. This isn't an issue that we should be debating or discussing. That was his basic answer. And I was like, that makes a lot of sense. Like, the Supreme Court's
Absolutely.
ruled on it. What more do you want to do? So, but yeah, it's things like that. There's been lots of stuff over the years, where it's not working with affiliates to help the affiliates at their request or at their approval. It's just kind of dictated down to them. This is the way it's going to be. And I hate that as a state chair. I try not to do that to my county parties. I give them the advice and the tools, but they're free to do what they want to do. I get people that complain about a county party. There's a couple county parties that are a little crazy, and they're like, you should disaffiliate them. And I'm like, their members should vote that leadership out. What do you want me to? They're
Yep.
like, yeah, I hate their messaging. It sucks. They're not saying anything that goes against our platform and our policies. They're just dicks. You don't like it, run against them. Get them out of
Yeah.
the office. Get enough
Yeah.
members together. Call a special meeting. Vote for a new chair. The national party should be focusing on members. At one point in time, this party had 32,000 dues paid members. We were generating $2 million a year in revenue. And that's not just from membership dues, because membership dues are only $25 a year. And if you're not a member, you should go to lp.org and hit that join button, followed by lpin.org and hit that join button.
Or you
Hey,
can just do the lp.org and you can just
triple
become a
membership.
triple membership.
Yeah, we'll
That's what
take
we
care of
did.
your for you. But I think they would get mad at me in national if I didn't plug the LP.org though
Without a
too.
doubt, without a
Uh,
doubt.
so, 32,000 members, and we're at, I think, 875 now, 8,750-ish, little less than 9,000 members. In a day and age when we have so many different tools and ways to connect with people, to, just give them our message, to get feedback from them, to find out we could be more interactive. We can do more things. We could figure out what's the thing. I don't have the stacks of them over there, but the world's smallest political quiz from the advocates. We
Yeah,
use that here in Indiana. And if you fill that out at a county fair and it gets dropped into a fish tank bowl for a drawing for $100 gas card, that information gets recorded into our CRM. So then when that county wants to contact you, if you weren't great on guns, they're not going to contact you about a pro Second Amendment rally.
right.
But if you're good on taxes, well, we're going to contact you about that. Let's get you to come in. We have such great technology and partnerships that we can use to reach out and engage with people. Our membership, I want us to see us double our best year. I want to see us at 64,000 members by the time our presidential campaign rolls around. I think it's doable. It's hard work. It takes phone calls.
I
It takes,
really do think it's doable. I
it
mean, you
really
had
is.
you had Elon Musk calling for another party.
Yeah.
You have I think what was the latest Fox News poll was like 45% of people identify as an independent
No, it's
versus
60. It's
is it 60?
60%.
Yeah, something
60%.
insane. I knew it was I knew it was something insane. So it's like, all you need is to
There's over
present that.
200,000 registered libertarian voters in the United States. How are they, and I do know from my time working on a campaign in Arizona, which had around 40,000 registered libertarian voters, we couldn't get 5,000 signatures to put the governor on the ballot. We went door to door to register libertarians, and they're like, no vote. I'm not signing that government paper, but
He's tri-fed boy.
it literally words at the door. And, you're like, damn it, I hate our party so but we should be reaching out to the registered voters. We should be finding out what's keeping them from joining the party. And here's why membership's so important. It's not about, yeah, we want to show that we have a strong force. We want to put the Republicans and Democrats in parity and put them on their back heels, right? If we go from an 8,000 member org to a 64,000 member org in 2 to 4 years, they're going to be scared. But the real reason why is because membership leads to candidates. Membership leads to volunteers for candidates. Membership leads to donors, to activists. You can't have a successful party if you don't have members. If
Right.
you don't have people that have bought in, got the card, continue to show up, if you need to hold a rally at, a tax protest rally or, an anti-war rally, and you only have, 150 members in your state, who's going to show up?
Yeah.
Who's going to show up for the candidates? Who's going to be a candidate? Who's going to go out and walk neighborhoods for a candidate? We need an army, and that army starts with membership. So we've got to, have those multiple touch points. We got to find out what they're interested in. We got to meet them where they are on the libertarian spectrum and bring them in, get them comfortable, get them coming to events, get them volunteering at an event, get them to become a member, and get them more and more and more and more and more engaged. And if we can do that, I promise you, we're going to beat the system.
Yeah.
But we can't do it with 8,000 people.
Right. Right. Yeah, because there's so many people that like you said, so many people that are, I mean, you just know, again, 60 something percent,
Yeah.
60 something percent. You just need some of those. You don't need
But
all of them.
you also got to see that there's other people there.
Yeah.
If you walk into a room and there's 4 people in the room and it's supposed to be, some policy thing or, are you going to feel like it's going to be effective? If you're trying to stop a government funded data center that's going to be built off the backs of local taxpayers and ratepayers, and you're trying to block that, even though we're not anti data center, we just want them to pay for their own shit.
Yes.
And you walk into the room and there's 4 people. Are you going to stick around or are you going to go back to watching The Pit on HBO? Because why would you get involved when there's nobody here? So you got to show that there's people there. You got to show successes. You got to show victories. We've lobbied to change laws in Indiana. We're on the books. We were successful in getting things changed. We were successful in getting things blocked. We've gotten people elected. In a partisan state with straight ticket voting, we got people elected to local offices who made their local communities better. Showing those successes, but you got to have those things to be able to show people. Another thing is media attention, and that's the other thing I want to bring to the national party is I want us to have positive media attention. You're here in Indiana with me. You know that every month we have a press release or an op-ed that gets carried by the media across the state. And it's always
Yeah.
positive. It's a good thing. It's, yeah, we're talking about something we hate most of the time, but it's because we're talking about government. We freaking hate that.
Yeah.
You know, they're good stories that people can relate to, and we find a way to connect the issue to the person reading the paper. I think it was 2024, did an op-ed on civil asset forfeiture, and the Indy Star picked it up. And even though they dunk on us all the time, and their columnist says we're garbage and we shouldn't be allowed on the party or on the ballot, that article was the #1 read article for 2024. The next article, the closest article, we beat them double.
That's awesome.
Columnist wrote about it. And it was, and then we went on radio and a couple TV programs, and it was carried, I think, like 17 papers picked up the op-ed after that. But we do that regularly. And it's not because, we have some secret magic thing. It's just because we do the work. We
Right.
got a comms team. We plan out our messaging. We were able to react. When Trump first bombed Iran a while ago, I was sitting at home. I think I just finished mowing my yard, and a member messaged me and said, "Is the LPIN going to respond?" And I was like, "To what?" And he was like, "The Iran bombing." And I'm like, "What Iran bombing?" And he said, "Trump just announced they bombed Iran." I turned on the news, and it literally had been 5 minutes. And I was like, damn, like, it's like 7 o'clock at
Cut me
night,
some slack, man.
right? Can we do it in the morning? It was like, hey, nobody else is talking about it yet. So I reached out to our comms director, Andrew Smith. He was on a date with his wife. And I was like, I want to be first. So I packed up the laptop and started writing a response, and we got it out. It was within 30 minutes of the bombing. We got it out. Our press release was the thing because nobody else had got anything out.
Yeah.
It actually ended up being picked up in a couple other states. But, you have to have a comms team that's pushing policy issues. It can't just be reactionary. It's got to be like we plan out our comms calendar. We know what we're going to be sending out press releases, or well, not press releases, but op-eds, 3 to 6 months in advance. That's the kind of precision that you have to have. And then you have to be ready to pivot and respond to things as they
Right.
happen.
Right. You have to know what legislation's being pushed for this
Yeah.
session. You have to know what's been talked about. What are we,
And we
that's
need a national party that is going to do that on the national level, dealing with national issues, but also ready to help a state affiliate,
right. Right.
help them build that up for themselves. You know what I mean? Like I, as national chair, am not going to be doing press releases or op-eds on a local issue in Indiana or Ohio or Pennsylvania or New Mexico or Arizona.
Right.
But
Right.
I'm going to help those states do it. And if they'd like us to do it for them or with them, I'm more than happy to, work that out. But we're not going to do it just
Every
to
time.
them. Right.
Right. And
Right.
you don't have the time to do 50 states worth of, however many
Yeah.
counties in each state, however many,
Yeah.
like that's
Yeah.
just asinine. You can't
Well,
expect
there's
that.
92 counties in Indiana alone.
Yeah.
But, we need to be working together and using best practices and teaching and learning from each other. Contrary to what I may believe, I don't know everything. I'm not perfect. You can edit this part out, by the way. I learned things from other state parties. I was in Texas and they had some really cool stuff going on at their state convention that I wanted to bring back to our team to say, hey, these are some things that, maybe we should consider doing, changing things up a little bit. Ohio's had a legislative director for a long time, and it's a great, program that they've got going, somebody whose task it is to watch and respond to legislation in the state. There are different things in different states that they do well that we should all be learning from each other. And national should be that, melting pot or that repository, that wiki, that, let's get together, let's do this. We used to have regional trainings. I don't think a regional training once a year is enough. I think we need more than that. I think we
Yeah.
need to have regular, and we live in a period where we don't have to get on a plane.
Right, right. I'm 2 states away from you doing this right now. Yep.
We need to be using, when we're nerds, we know how to do this.
Right.
Like, how many computer programmers do we have in the party? We should be building an infrastructure to teach and learn and record and use the AI tools that are out there. I mean, I'm going to say I dumped a whole bunch of election results into an AI system that I built, and it spit out some key places where we should probably be running candidates because we get good results there. We should be doing that in every state. We should be tying things in with our CRM to find out, like, what does a libertarian look like according to consumer data, so that we can target those people and say, hey, you might be a libertarian based off of this. There's all kinds of fun stuff that we could be doing, but it requires us to be working together as,
Yes.
one team,
Well,
not.
especially because we don't at this point have a, Koch brothers or you know what I mean? Like there's
Yeah,
not a or a Na or a Ma Adelson,
yeah.
there's not some billionaire. If there's anybody listening to this show that's a billionaire libertarian, please give
Please
Evan a
come.
shout.
Yeah,
Please,
well,
we will take
let's
the
sit down,
money.
let's chat.
I
Every
actually
time
created a
somebody's like, they're funded by the Koch brothers, I'm like, where the hell's my check?
right, right.
It's 15, 16 years. I didn't get the memo. What the hell?
I actually made a campaign shirt, and it's like a quote, and it says, and it's me it's for my campaign, and it's a quote that says, "I've never taken NiSource money. Not that I wouldn't. It wouldn't change how I vote, though." And then it says, "Travis Gearhart, State Rep, District 4."
Yeah, yeah. We in 2012, Rupert Bonham was offered a contribution from a Right to Life group, which was funny because Rupert was very pro-choice. And he said, "What do I do?" And I said, "Take the money. Is it going to change your vote? Are you going to suddenly become pro-life?" And he was like, "No." And I was like, "It's their fault for
Oh,
sending
yeah.
you the check. I don't
Yeah.
care."
Yep.
I mean, there are definitely organizations that I would probably not take money from because I think it's blood money. So it'd be hard for me to wanna take that money.
Yeah.
You know, APAC being one
APAC's
of
the
them.
first one I was gonna say. I'd have a real hard time taking APAC money.
And it's, like, there's a lot of hostility around that issue.
Yeah,
And it's a hard one. There's a lot of, Jewish American organizations that I think do amazing and great work, but APAC, I think that they're more aligned with the interest of the military state.
for
And
sure.
so it's what it is. Like the Jewish Defamation League, I know there are people who don't like them. I think they do great work. Sorry, guys.
Nobody has to, particularly love everything. And that's the
Yeah,
thing about it, and we never try to do that on this show. I never try to do that in real life. I don't make a secret about where I stand on things. Anybody that ever wants to know how I stand on anything, they can read my Substack articles, they can listen to this podcast. All 6 Substack subscribers. No, like every other Substack, we have a lot more people that watch the show than read my
yeah,
Substack.
yeah, yeah.
Nobody wants to read my long-winded, diatribes on corporatism, just like
Well,
every other
like,
libertarian.
as a gay man, like, there's groups that I can't support, like the Human Rights Campaign, HRC. And it really boils down to, for years I watched them take corporate money and put their logos on their website while those same people were funding candidates who were like, homosexuality should be a crime, literally,
Right, right.
and I'm like, they literally gave money to Rick Santorum from their political PAC, but because they advertise through you, you're putting their company as a sponsor on your website. I have a problem
Uh,
with that.
yep,
There was a lot of, it's rainbow washing, and I hate it.
yeah.
You know,
I hate when the month of June comes around and every company changes all their shit to rainbow. And again, and don't get me
I
wrong,
mean,
I've always been very, very
as a
LGBT
gay man,
friendly.
like,
I've had my godmother was a lesbian.
yeah,
I grew up around. I never knew it was anything weird until I was told
Pride
it was
Month.
something weird.
Thing about
Yeah,
Pride Month is we're not. the LGBT community, we're not represented really in a lot of, and it's changed a lot, but we're not represented in media or business, and we're not seen. And that's my thing is, you don't have to like me, you don't have to agree with me, you don't have to agree with or like anybody, but you have to respect the fact that they exist in the world and they're allowed to exist in the world and live their life as they see fit. I remember being told so many times, "Oh, I don't mind as long as they keep it in the bedroom. So it's okay as long as I don't exist in your world. It's my
Right.
world too, motherfucker, and I'm gonna exist." Pride Month is a month for me, it's harkening back to the Stonewall riots when police would go into gay bars, mostly owned by the mob, by the way.
That's
Um,
interesting.
and they would go in and they would raid it and they would just arrest everybody for literally being queer. And it was the
What they
drag
call it,
queen.
sodomy is what
Yeah.
what
Um, and so, it was actually the drag queens and the trans women who literally threw the first bricks at Stonewall at cops and said, "Not today. We're not going. We're going to fight you right here in the street." And it was a riot and it forced a change. That's the history. And it's come, further and further and further. Now there's things like me, like I don't go to pride festivals because I don't like the fact that it's sponsored by Grindr and Absolute Vodka. I think those are harmful to our community.
yeah.
I don't like going around, and seeing half naked people, male or female. Like it's just, to me, that's not a thing that I enjoy. So I typically don't go to those things. There's a pride event in Spencer, Indiana that I love going to. They've been doing it for over 10 years now. And it's a family friendly event. They've got booths set up, they've got music, and everybody has a good time. But it's not a bunch of people getting drunk and acting stupid.
It's not an orgy.
Right. And so, and if you want to do that, that's fine. Do that. Just
Right, right.
don't make that my community event. Like, I don't want to go to that. But Pride Month is about being seen and about knowing that we exist. What I don't like is I don't like corporations like Target who only see us and only pretend we exist from, the month of June.
Yeah.
That's the thing that bothers me. The companies like Subaru who see the community all year, mostly lesbians,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah,
that's
there's lots of jokes about the Subaru.
yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah. Uh, my boyfriend almost bought a Subaru, and I was like, "Are you trying to tell me something? Like, what's going on? I thought I knew you." And then he got a Buick because he's basically, an old queen. I hope he doesn't see this, me making fun of him. Um, but it's not for you, it's for us. It's for us to feel like we're seen and we're part of society, and it's that respect thing. I just don't like that it's used to rainbow wash the same way, that Komen for the Cure pink washes companies that poison people. You know,
Yes. Yes.
it's the same thing. You give us $100,000 and you get to have our little ribbon on your packaging, even though that
Mhm.
product is a large contributor to breast cancer.
Brought to you by Monsanto.
Right, so it's those things really, really bother me, and that's why I roll my eyes when I see somebody rolling out their June Pride campaign. It's because it's disingenuous, and
Yeah.
I don't like being pandered to. But there are companies that have stood with the LGBT community for a generation or more. Coors back in the day, they were being boycotted. There was something going on with the truckers union, and I think it was a different beer. Anywho, the gay community in San Francisco got together with the truckers, and they basically only drank Coors, and Coors ended up becoming very pro LGBT because of it.
That's a cool
And
story.
yeah, and it stayed that way for a long time. And then one of the kids fucked it up by saying some stupid shit. And then we saw those signs coming down from the gay bars. But, that was something that was at the time where it was like, oh, it wasn't just people would see that Coors was sponsoring, a pride event in the early 2000s, and they would be like, ah, that's just pandering. It's like, no, they've actually had a relationship with the community since the 70s.
Yeah.
This has been a long-standing thing. I would like it to not be cigarette companies, liquor companies, sex toys and sex apps. I'd prefer it to not be that. But,
Wish in
it is
one
what it
hand, shit
is.
in the other,
Yeah.
as they say. Hey, I know you have a heart out, and I know we're
We're a
looking at
little over.
yeah, so hey, that's fine. I'll let you get going. It's we're at an hour or two. Thank you so much again for coming on. I'm
Absolutely,
looking
anytime.
forward to having you on again in the future as the national chair. I'll check my email because it sounds like I am now going to be there and able to vote for you.
You should get a call from Stephanie Dosbach, the secretary,
Okay.
confirming that you're going, and then I think she'll be letting you know. We had a couple people drop out, and you're on the list for the alternate, so I think you get
Yep.
moved up. So
Perfect.
answer that phone call when you see it.
Okay. Actually, I just got a phone call from a 317 number. Would that be her?
It's probably her.
That's fine. I literally just now got a missed call from a
It's probably
317
her.
number, so I'll call her back right now. So thank you again so much, Evan. I'm looking forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks. Honestly, anybody listening, you guys hear me and Keith talk about the Libertarian Party and all that since we've been getting involved. Me so more so than Keith. Keith isn't there yet. He's still
Let's
he's
bring
he's
it.
he's
Let's bring
still
it.
he's getting there. He's getting there. So he's actually down in Demont. So there is no Libertarian. I don't think in what county is that? Jasper County. I don't think there's any.
No, there was for a long time. They kind of dried up
Yeah.
probably, gosh, almost 10 years ago.
Yeah. So yeah, we're gonna get him on board, but no, again, thank you so much. I appreciate your time, and I'll get this edited. Like I said, I'm in Pennsylvania for a conference, so it'll probably be out Wednesday, I'd
All
say.
right.
But yeah, I'll send it over and I'll copy on it, and hey, everybody, thank you so much for watching. As always, I'm Travis Gearhart. I'm here with Evan McMahon, and we are Disenfranchised.